Hello and welcome to A Day with a Cart Driver. I am Scamp and I am here with...
Day.
We're up to the winter 2017 season. We're rapidly approaching the end. So, although we're still like 3 years off, I guess. But yes, winter 2017 season.
Yeah, we only have at least 12 more of these?
I guess so.
Wow, we're so close to the end.
Well, so the big show this season, well...
Okay.
Depends what way you look at it, I guess. But, our favourite show of the season.
Well, yes. And I think it did well commercially.
It was definitely a success. It was Tanya the Evil, which is...
by Studio Nut.
Nut!
I think this is their first solo production.
Yep.
And I remember being quite impressed with the promo video.
Yes.
Because it was like, whoa, what's this? What's this studio? Never heard of it before?
Also a pretty ridiculous studio. Because I only watched the first 30 seconds of the movie for Tanya the Evil. We still haven't watched that yet. But it has their logo come up and just it's just this pentagon with nut inside it. There's a name. So yeah, Tanya the Evil is probably one of the most unique isekai to come out. And kind of in a way is, for me, justifies the whole isekai genre because, well, look, no matter what else came out of it, Tanya the Evil came out of it.
Well, I think it is worth pointing out, though, when you speak of the isekai genre, it is worth keeping in mind that this is also a specific subset of isekai, which is to say the reborn in another world type, not the sucked into another world type,
yes.
Which, granted... the latter is not as common these days as the former, but nevertheless, I do want to make that distinction. Because I don't think that Tanya the Evil justifies, Magic Knight Ray Earth's existence.
Yeah.
I think I would put it more as, to me, it justifies some of the more indulgent excesses of the isekai genre.
So rather than going back to your standard, fantasy RPG world... where you go and take quests and the like, that has elves and goblins and so on. This is sent back to magical World War One?
Yeah, basically. So it's the 1920s in an alternate world, but World War One hadn't happened yet, and roughly it's happening at this point in that world. But the rough premise of the show is that, what if there was a guy who's a corporate asshole, so much so that someone he fired, and I'm not spoiling anything.
Oh, this is the first 5 minutes of the show.
And what if, you're, like I said, you're a corporate asshole, and you're such an asshole that when you fire someone, that person ends up following you to the train station, pushes you in front of one of the commuter trains. So you die, and in the last moments before you die, the world suddenly slows down, and you get essentially are challenged by an otherworldly being which identifies itself as God with, do you believe in me or not? And you're a smug little asshole, and you're like, no, of course not. That's ridiculous. And then God's like, all right, fuck you then. And you get hit by the train, and you reincarnate into... an orphaned baby girl in magical 19-teens Europe. Yeah.
So there's a weird, a whole lot of set of different themes going on here. One of them being both the success and the downfalls of, you call it corporate assholism, which is definitely part of it, but it's also what's the word I'm looking for? Not corporate sociopathy.
Yes. One of the ironies of this is that you may know this show is the fascist lolly show, which is not accurate at all. It's also worth pointing out that the original author wrote this as a critique of the sort of mindset that gets rewarded in corporate settings.
Yes.
I don't think he's quite as progressive as he thinks he is, because I have read the first novel, and I would say one of the benefits of the adaptation of the novel is that some of the slightly weirder stuff to do with gender is not present in the anime. Yeah. I have to give this show credit, because the guy reincarnates into a little girl And his reaction isn't like, "Ugh, I'm a girl, this is the worst." It's just that in this particular case, it's like, okay, you think, you've got everything in life and you've had a great life and it's all by your own hard work. Well, let's see how you do if I make you into someone who's at one of the bottom rungs of society. So that's part of why, specifically a girl and an orphan and a baby.
But it also... The show, in a way, also shows why the corporate sociopathy is so successful, because in this military society, he's grown up and it's like, look, so long as I can kick people's butt and just show general corporate sociopathy, he rises. She rises. Like, I don't even know what to...
I guess I'd say she, because in the show, I would argue that I don't think gender much matters to the lead. Tanya doesn't seem to be much hung up on, having once been male and now being female. It seems completely of no interest to her, which is at variance with the book, and I think it's one of the advantages of the anime over the book.
Yeah.
But two, it's to say that Tanya... to go back to the the lolly fascist. Well, but that posits that Tanya has an ideology that's more complicated than what can I do to save my own ass?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because she is so dedicated to not having to work difficult positions. And she does her hardest to avoid putting herself into any physical danger. She's frequently unsuccessful in this regard.
Yeah.
There's one of the best cuts in the show is when she's like, "Oh, I found a cushy assignment," and it's something to do with
research.
It's research and development of a weapon of war, basically. And she's like, "Oh ho ho, far from the front lines, isn't this great?" And then it immediately cuts to her screaming away because it turns out the research and development, it's not that she's overseeing it, it's that she's the test subject who's getting to try out this new... It's called a computational orb, and it's the way that they...
control magic in this show.
Yeah, it's how they can fly.
Yes.
Is probably the best way of
because they're kind of fighter pilots, except just...
without a plane.
So one of the most impressive things about this show is we talk about this being like this studio nut. They're... sorry, I will stop saying that as you're drinking tea. It's their first outing, and the... directing in particular, like the animation too, but more than that, it's just the directing, the scene transition, the way they shoot the action scenes in the skies. It is incredible. It is genuinely one of the best directed anime of the decade.
Yeah, this is a damn good looking show.
Like, phenomenal, really.
I struggle to think of another, first show effort by a studio that is quite as good.
Nothing I can think of comes close.
I
Maybe Ghibli.
Well, that's not really the same thing, though, because we're talking, movies and TV series.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe if I sat down and looked at the first thing that Bones put out.
Ooh, yeah, that would be my guess. I think their first thing might have been Razafon. Oh, no, it was the Cowboy Bebop movie.
Well, TV series, I guess.
Yeah, I think it might
have
been. Yeah, it might be Bones. I think Razafon may have been Bones' first work.
So...
and I think Tanya looks better, but that's a controversial opinion.
I'm thinking... KyoAni's early stuff, even if stylistically I might not dig it.
Like Fumofu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although...
I still think Tanya...
Fumofu, though, isn't really something you get to flex your
No, I mean, they do...
Anyway. Yeah. This is a good show. If you've been avoiding it because you're like, oh, it's a lolly fascist show, I would suggest giving it another look, particularly if you like war stories.
Yes. And it is absolutely worth watching just as much as to watch Tanya's reaction faces as everything she thought she had planned does not go according to plan.
Yeah, another way of thinking of this is that Tanya the Evil is a show about a self-centered asshole being constantly dunked on by God. So it's kind of...
a highly competent self-serving asshole.
Yeah.
Who's very good at what...
absolutely.
That's the thing. She's very, very good at what she does. But because she is very good at what she does, it's basically the show showing how the world will move against her for having that thing, which is kind of like, it's what the show, she realizes it in the end and hates the world for it.
Yeah, the final scene in the show is really good.
Yes. And God is also kind of turning the screws against her as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is actually...
Being X, sorry.
That's another thing that was better in the show than in the novel, because... So she opts to call it being X because she's like, I'm not going to call you God.
Yeah. God is illogical, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, which, I felt, I will say, with her being like, oh, God's illogical, there couldn't possibly be. It's like, you just died and got reincarnated into a magic world. Like,
it's like, well, obviously you...
I
think it was more, she didn't want to acknowledge God existed, but she acknowledged that this was a crazy creature that is obviously... So that's why she just said, you're being X, you're not God.
Well, I will say this, though. I was having flashbacks to Umineko and like, witches don't exist!
Okay, that's slightly different.
But, yeah, so she opts to call it being X. In the novels, it's much more... Being X is somewhat incidental. It resurfaces to basically put her back in her place every time she starts getting a bit much. And being X actually only doesn't show up a huge amount. In the novels, being X there's an implication that there's multiple being X's, and they're playing games with humanity.
And that's kind of less interesting.
I think that it's probably meant somewhat as a... So I suspect that the author may have been inspired or riffing on, of all things, the Iliad.
Huh.
Because in the Iliad, it's all the gods are putting the pieces on the board and pushing them this way and that, the humans.
Okay.
So I think that's what the author was riffing on, but I also find it much less compelling.
Yeah, it doesn't fit as well thematically, I think.
But, and hey, you know what? It got a movie sequel, so...
Which we'll talk about when it comes...
We'll talk about when we get to it.
Because we haven't watched it yet.
Well, and also because it hasn't happened yet within this particular timeline.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's kind of the big thing. That's the season. No,
okay.
So there was Kobayashi's Dragon Maid by KyoAni.
Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid.
Which was a fairly successful show, I think more so in the West than Japan, weirdly.
I think it sold decently, but it certainly wasn't one of KyoAni's heavy hitters.
No, but it was definitely very liked.
So it's worth pointing out that the director was one of the folks who died in the fire last summer.
Oh, it was, wasn't it? Yes.
Because... there was a sequel that was announced in, I don't know, maybe earlier in the year. Really? And no one's sure what's going to happen with that. The director was Yasuhiro Takemoto. He was probably the highest profile person who died in the fire over the summer.
Yeah, I remember hearing about this. Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with the sequel. But, yeah, anyway, I think I've seen more of this than you've seen.
I haven't seen any.
So, this is one of those shows that I didn't mean to drop, but I think I was very busy at work, so it fell by the wayside. And what I saw of it, I liked quite a bit. I would argue that... So, the premise is that there is this woman who works in an office, and one day a woman shows up at her door who is she says she's a dragon. She also says she's there to be her maid. This is, by the way, the woman who is getting a maid offered to her is Miss Kobayashi.
Yeah.
Her dragon maid. She's a tail. Her breast size also got upped big time for the TV series, so that there could be a joke about the fact that it's D for dragon.
Oh, very clever.
I'll admit I did think that was funny. But I would argue that this is actually a show about immigration. It is an immigrant story.
The dragon being the immigrant?
Yes.
Okay.
And she's in a completely different society. And she has a bit of concern about... So there's one particular episode where she helps to apprehend a man who has stolen a purse, I think. And they're in the shopping arcade, and she and Miss Kobayashi are in the shopping arcade. They're getting, household goods type stuff. And Toru stops the thief, but Toru's also really strong because she's a dragon, even if she is in human form. And she gets very nervous because she notices that people are staring because of the amount of strength she showed, and she starts getting really scared that she's going to get
deported.
Hurt. Well, that she's going to be harmed. And yeah, that was the moment when I was like, oh, this is an immigration story. This is about, going into a completely different society and trying to fit in and being afraid that you're not going to be able to and that people are going to hurt you because you're different. And I was like, my mind was blown.
Yeah.
So I would argue, and that's part of why I'd like to go back to it.
Then there was probably the most bizarre hit in terms of like, how the hell did this end?
I feel like this might be the bizarre hit of the decade, even.
Yes, I was going to say, I don't know anything else that, like, who the hell expected Kimono Friends to be one of the biggest anime in Japan, less so in the West? Although not nothing, but...
I'd say it's a cult hit in the West.
I mean, it's a cult hit in Japan, but that cult is...
This show is weird.
Like... Do you remember that penguin in the zoo in Japan?
Oh, yes. The penguin that was going to starve to death because they had... So, as a cross-promotion for the show, they had done... Okay, maybe we should just actually try to explain what the show is. Although, you can't really because it's kind of out there. So, what if cute girls but animals? And... There's one girl who's just a human, and she wakes up with no memories in this place called Japari Park.
Yeah.
And
they walk around meeting...
It seems like it might be post-apocalyptic,
yes.
But it's... and they're Kaban, who's the girl, because she doesn't know what her name is, and she has a bag, so they're like, oh, you can be Kaban. And she's like, okay. She's trying to get to the library in this park because because the first being she runs into, Serval, who's this short attention spanned cat, a Serval cat, is like, oh, well, maybe if we go to the library, we can help you figure out who you are. And so they try to get across the park, and it's huge, and it's full of all these other animal girls, and there's also this weird thing that can eat them called cerulean, I think.
It's also attempting to be semi-educational, like they tell you about the animals, and at the end of the episode they'll have a zookeeper talk about the animals and what they do.
Yeah, God, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's the girls, and as a cross-promotion in a zoo, or was it an aquarium, they had cardboard cutouts of the girls in the same, in the areas where the different animals were. Specifically, this one was a penguin. Yes, an elderly male penguin lay down on his stomach and stopped eating because he just wanted to look at the penguin girl.
No, I think it was when they tried to take it out, it wouldn't eat, and they brought it back in, and it would only hang out with the cardboard cutout. Yeah. It didn't hang out with the other penguins.
And I think the penguin was named Grape.
Yes.
It was Grape-kun.
And Grape-kun couldn't stand to be apart from the Kimono Friend cardboard cutout. Then it died.
Well, yes, but
it died a natural death.
He died a natural death much more recently than this. He didn't starve to death.
And there were all these fan art of the penguin going off to heaven holding an anime girl's hand. It was the most Kimono Friends.
Anyway, this thing ended up being weirdly huge. The show itself.
Yeah. Merchandise everywhere.
It's bizarre. It also ended up being the subject subsequently of a bit of a scandal because the director, because this was it was a mobile game.
It was the mobile game never came out. And bear in mind, this thing is CG animated and really, really poorly CG animated. Like it's every awkward CG thing you've ever seen. Like people moving like weird robots and they don't actually like touch each other. There's no proper like. This is not Land of the Lustrous, let's put it like that.
Anyway, but the director who did this, and I honestly don't think anybody expected it to really do anything, and he went totally bizarro on it because I don't think it was supposed to be as out there as it ended up being. And the thing was a huge hit. So the studio got rid of him and was like, yeah, we'll do season 2 without you. And people were pissed.
Oh, God, the drama.
There was a huge campaign to, like, how dare you have fired him and this, that, and the other. I mean, it didn't get him rehired. They made the second season anyway. But the second season, as far as I'm aware, it really didn't sell. Yeah, well, and I know that people didn't, like, people I knew who were into the first season were like, I'm not watching it.
Yeah.
So, you know, good on you anime fans for supporting better labor relations.
Yes.
You're not always good at this shit, folks.
But in this case, we'll give it to you.
But yeah, so that one was Kimono Friends. The rest of it is...
I mean, so I watched all of the next one, which is Little Witch Academia. They finally had the TV show come out. But I mean, I've talked about Little Witch Academia a few times now.
I guess my point was going to be, other than... I think we've hit the biggest things of the season, with the exception of the Sword Art Online movie, which I have nothing to say other than that. I remember seeing one of the posters for the movie and being like, I'm so mad that this is really good design here. But it's for something that I find really, I just don't want to have anything to do with. Anyway, it did well, so, you know. Yeah.
I like Little Witch Academia. Very colourfully animated. Or actually, you can tell Trigger themselves are proud of it, because if you go to their Twitter account, they've got a big banner on the top of the front, and it's you won from Kill la Kill, and it's the main character from Little Witch Academia.
Yeah, so this was one of the ones that ended up on Netflix, so people were kind of annoyed because it didn't come out for a while, but it did pretty well on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very family-friendly... It's a kid show, basically.
Yeah.
Which is kind of why you end up not liking it much.
Well, so I watched 7 or 8 episodes well after it aired, and yeah, it was a bit too simplistic for me.
Because I watched the whole thing. I mean, I'm not crazy on Little Witch Academia, but I always liked it. I like Harry Potter, so anime Harry Potter was like, yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, just, again... It was, even to me, by kids' show standards, what I saw of it just seemed a bit too simplistic. I was pretty bored by the time I dropped it.
Yeah.
But I think as a kids' show, it's fine.
Yeah. Then we both watched this next one.
Oh, okay. I have opinions on Aka. So Aka's by the same author as made House of Five Leaves.
Yes.
Which is...
Jose.
Probably... You know, thinking on it, I feel like that's one of the anime I'd point to if someone was like, what about art house type anime? That's something I might point to. House of Five Leaves. I have opinions on Aka.
So Aka is a sort of separate country.
That's shaped like a bird.
It's shaped like a bird. It looks
in
like
the middle of the ocean.
It looks like a Twitter bird.
Yes, actually it does.
Doesn't it?
And it's split into 13 provinces, I think.
And these people are kind of the central police, and this guy works as an auditor for the central police, sort of.
Yeah, their thing is they go around and they...
Yeah.
I mean, he performs audits of the different provinces when it's like, okay, is there anything janky going on in your finances?
And basically the story is more about him going to these different regions and just kind of learning the culture there, and then often either uncovering something that's going wrong there or just sort of learning what the hell drives this region.
It does end up being probably the chillest political thriller I've ever encountered.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
In fact, so much so that I feel wrong calling it a political thriller, even though
it's a political
that
cake.
Is what it is, because it ends up being this whole thing with the...
It's assassination.
Well, it's also because there's a royal family, and, you know... It's the king is getting older, and you've got the prince who's the heir, and, you know, there seems like there's some strange stuff going on with attempted coup d'etat type things. And this is where I have issues with it.
Yes.
Because, so, Aka has quite a bit of diversity in terms of its different provinces. And I mean that culturally, racially... You know, that's pretty nifty, particularly when you consider that, well, a lot of anime is not very diverse in that regard. I I feel so conflicted because on the one hand, there's so much I like about it, but I also feel like the underpinning message is terrible. Because we find out that, so the heir is horrible. He's petty, and he is trying to get a couple of people assassinated because they might be the children of his aunt. And if they are, then they would be next in line for the throne, not him. It's not his aunt, it's his older sister, who presumably died. But she may not have. She may have gone and lived a regular old life and had 2 kids.
God, I've forgotten all these details.
And the royal family, they're all blue eyes, very pale skin, and blonde hair.
Yes.
Meanwhile, it turns out there's folks who are trying to subvert the government because they think the heir is a rambling wreck who's going to ruin the country. And I don't think they're wrong about it.
Nope.
And they want to move toward a different system. And they happen to all be darker skinned and coded as Arab.
Wearing turbans.
There's really no way around it because it's also, we're told point blank that, they live in a more desert type part of the country and they've got oil.
Oil money specifically, yes.
And so ultimately what you end up with is a narrative in which, even though the heir to the throne is a terrible human being, he nevertheless is the valid leader, whereas, those brown upstarts who actually are concerned that the new leader's going to be a terrible person for the country, well, they're totally illegitimate.
Yeah.
And it really does come down to, okay, you've got a bunch of blonde-haired, blue-eyed white people, and they're the ones who should be in charge because, well, they're royalty.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, brown people shouldn't be. And it's inescapable once you see it. You really can't get away from it. It's just too obvious. Because, 2, we have this entire structure of, the lead works for the agency. I forget what the hell it's called. And he is... we're led to believe that all these people are competent, hardworking human beings, and then they don't support trying to get someone better on the throne or coming up with a better system of governance. Yeah. They end up supporting the terrible heir to the throne. Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, but, we've demonstrated that we could take you out anytime we wanted to.
Yeah, which is even worse. It's like, yes, ultimately our secret police force basically said...
Also full of pale white folk.
Yeah, well, it actually is quite diverse in there as well. But
but also we're led to believe that the people who are behaving badly within their ranks are brown-skinned people.
True.
And again, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
But
and I don't think you can separate it out.
Not only do they say the royalty should take precedent over, I don't know, democracy. They also say this royalty is also only in place because the secret police allow it to be so. Which is even worse.
Yeah. So, it pains me because a lot of what happens prior to that point is good. It's fun seeing the different places. You know, I think it's got good world building, but the core of it's rancid. I can't recommend this show. It's a terrible message.
They eat a lot of cake in this show.
Yeah, they do eat a lot of cake.
Anyway.
Oh, God, and that's not even getting into, there's the guy who, it turns out that his father's entire life was just about keeping an eye on this person who may have been a prince. Do you remember that part?
Oh,
and then
yes.
the son, that's his entire life, too.
Yes.
And that's all their life revolves around. And this is presented as a positive thing.
Yeah.
That your whole life would just be, I'm watching over someone who might be royalty. And making sure they don't get hurt. And that is my entire life. I have no life other than that. You
remember a lot more about the show than I do.
Yes, because there's a lot that bothered me.
Yeah, I think you liked the show more than I did.
I find it ideologically troubling.
I think it's because you liked the show more than me, so you found it... I can't think
of the name of the author. I like a lot of her stuff, so... Yeah. Watching this, it was like...
Yeah.
What the fuck? Anyway.
Had a cool look, but oh well. Anyway, for the rest of the TV series, there's a couple of stuff here. There's like, you watched all of Scum's Wish, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which
it's funny because people for years prior to this airing kept talking about this very, meaningful manga called Scum's Wish.
They talked about it kind of the same way people would talk about...
Actually...
What's the one that's Anata Saitayo? What's that one again?
I can picture the
Flowers of Evil.
Yes.
People talk about Scum's Wish in the same way they talk about Flowers of Evil.
Although I will also point out that people talked about Love and Lies in a similar vein to Scum's Wish. This is one of those things that's super trashy, but it got a good... I don't understand why people think this is so much more substantial than it is. This is a show about teens having ill-advised sexual relations, is the best way of putting it.
Isn't there a certain degree of nihilism? No, it's about self-hatred, isn't it?
It is, but I feel like so much of the runtime is devoted to bad sex choices that it's like,
Oh, so it's kind of like Maidens in Your Savage Season.
With no humor.
Okay.
It has no sense of humor.
All right.
And there's just, everybody's too bad. Yes, there are bad, selfish people out there, but the characters in the show are just too much. The sorts of choices they make and the thinking behind them is too hard. I hung around. Some of my friends in high school were fairly self-destructive individuals. They don't even come close to what these folks are up to. And I'm not even, talking about... There's a teacher in this who... she takes pleasure in stealing boys from the main character. And she's a 28-year-old woman. And she fucks fucks the main character's sex buddy. Ends up fucking the teacher that the main girl has a crush on. And it's just I'm sorry, but this is too much. There are too many... the volume of terrible human beings in this show is... terrible petty human beings is too high.
Okay.
And you have so many people who are oh, everybody thinks I'm good, but I'm really not. And I'm thinking, bitch, no one thinks you're good. No one. I promise you.
It's a terrible show about terrible people.
I do recall liking the OP. And I liked the visuals. And I also liked the terrible teacher who was around fucking everyone. Because she was so outrageously awful. And the difference was she didn't feel the least bit badly about it.
So what you did is you wanted one person in this show to be the moral guiding point. Maybe around all the terribleness.
I don't know. It was too much.
Okay.
And then there's this moment right at the end where a character is looking at another character and it's oh, they finally stopped arranging their entire life and their entire self-worth around men. And you're what? They're marrying a man. And pinning their... What? No, they're not. Also, they're marrying... Because the marriage is presented as oh, you're turning over a new leaf. And it's no, they're not. They're just shifting it slightly to have a more stable point at the center of it. Also, though, the person's said prior to this, I'm going to keep, fucking around, dude. I ain't going to stay with you just because I'm marrying you. I'm going to keep fucking everyone under the sun. And it's this is why 15-year-old boys shouldn't be allowed to make pronouncements on anything.
Wait, the 15-year-old boy was getting married?
No. See, no one's gonna...
Okay.
If you haven't seen it, no one's gonna know what the hell I'm going on about.
Okay.
But it was still this moment of, dude, I know this seems like you've said something profound, but to anyone over the age of 24, it's not.
Okay.
So, God, I do not understand why people thought that was a meaningful thing.
Anyway.
That doesn't even... anyway.
What else do we have this season?
There was, Masamune-kun's Revenge.
I don't even remember what this one was about.
So, this was one that had a pretty putrid premise.
Oh, yeah.
But I watched a few episodes of it because everybody in it was so stupid that it was just funny. So, Masamune-kun was called fat by a pretty girl when he was 7.
Oh, yes.
So he decided, I'll show you. I'm going to lose all the weight and become badass. And fast forward to high school. Oh, Masamune-kun, can I? And he's I'm hot.
And I will destroy.
Girls love me.
I know.
But he's also a moron.
Yes, I do remember this because It's one of those shows that, like, you think it's like...
I'm not saying it was
no
good, but the fact that everyone was a complete fucking moron took away a lot of the potential sleaziness it had.
Yeah, and I think it's also, he doesn't necessarily win as a result of this. Like, it's...
No, because arguably, the undercurrent is that, okay, you can change your exterior, but what you are at heart still pretty much remains the same. So yes, he's like, oh, I'm hot, girls like me.
Yes.
And he's still a moron. I remember the thing that really stuck out to me for this, though, was that the school uniforms were hideous.
Okay.
The girls' uniforms were so ugly.
You notice that in a lot of shows.
Yes, because there are some good school uniforms in anime, and there are also some hideous ones.
Anyway, then we had Interview with Monster Girls, which was the next... people were like, oh god, is Monster Girls a thing? Because Monster Musume was not that long ago. But this one, I believe
This was not a titsplosion.
This was no titsplosion, and much the worse off for. The thing is, it was trying to be like, oh, you're just interviewing these monster girls, and...
isn't it that he's like the school...
He's a teacher, but
he's a teacher.
He's a teacher, but he's also like being given the secondary job of... I think maybe he's a doctor. I can't remember.
I thought he was like the school nurse or doctor.
I think he is because he's wearing
Because there were actually a number of manga that involved, monster kids and specifically interacting with the school doctor or nurse.
Yeah. And the idea is he's talking to them to learn more about them. It definitely comes across as something, it's like, are you an older man and you want young monster girls to be into you?
But it's fairly...
anodyne. Yes, whereas Monster Musume is like, do you want monster titties? Well, we got monster titties for you.
Do you want to fuck a slime?
Do you want to fuck a snake? Which, and in a weird way, I have more respect for Monster Musume for being like that. And there was Bang Dream.
Oh, Bang Dream. This is not an idol show. It does have a mobile game, though.
Which there were ads for that.
From the people who brought you
everywhere.
Love Live School Idol Festival. This only had 10 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I only really bring it up because just how ubiquitous the advertisement for it was when we were in Japan.
Well, I know it did. So I think the mobile game must have done really well because I could have sworn the show didn't really sell, but they made a second season. So I think the mobile game must have done very well. I have watched a couple episodes of this. The premise is, it's about girl bands. That's what it's about. Yeah. They have bands. They play the drums. They have guitars.
It's no show by rock, is what you're saying.
It's fine. It's just, there's so many music shows.
Then there is Precure. Is this Precure?
Yes, it's Precure a la mode.
A la mode.
Oh my god. Remember how I said ugly uniforms?
Yeah.
I found the designs of the, the outfits they wear when they're in cure form, I didn't like them at all. I found them repellent because it's over-designed is how I would put it. There's just too much going on. Also, there are animal ears, and I actually don't really dig animal ears on girls. Why are you giving me that look?
Because I like some animal ears.
Yeah, well.
I like hollow, so...
Well.
Or... Gorbo. Anyway.
What?
There's an episode where she signs her name, and it's like, and the joke is that, see, now you finally know what she signs her name as, but she's written it so squiggly, it looks like Gorbo.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I know that a lot of people really loved this season of Precure.
Not you.
I watched 20 episodes of it because people kept telling me oh, it's so great, just wait. And I no.
No. God, you can tell I was quite busy this season because I watched nothing here.
You definitely watched, so you watched an episode of this next one with me, Onihei.
I genuinely do not remember doing this.
This was on Amazon. This was another one of those ones they totally failed to promote, although admittedly I think it would have been kind of a hard sell anyway. Onihei is, It's basically police procedural, but in the, during the time of the Tokugawa shogunate. I feel like, again, I think it's a hard sell because I think the target audience ultimately isn't so much your usual anime fan as it was, folks who are into like samurai historicals and things like that. But it's a police procedural.
Was this the one that Amazon put out and kept forgetting to put subtitles on the videos?
That was a few things because they did that with The Great Passage. Problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why.
I don't even remember watching it.
We watched the first episode. It is pretty old school.
I'll have to take your word for it.
I kind of dug it in terms of just because it is so of its own particular thing. I found it interesting from that vantage point, but I think we had a trial thing for Prime or something like that, and then it ended. And it ended before this ended, so I didn't watch anymore. 2 shows that inspired passions. Yeah. Not in a good way. Fuuka, which is by the same author as brought us Suzuka, which if you're an anime fan of a certain age, you're probably already gritting your teeth and getting pissy at the mere mention of Suzuka.
I have read all of Suzuka. It was actually when I first got into anime, I always thought it was Suzuka, but I guess not. It was actually one of the first manga I read the entire way through when I was first getting into anime. It was like, I read Love Hina, I read Ichigo 100%, and I read Suzuka. Hey, guess what? I was a horny teenage boy.
I feel like Suzuka is significantly different, though, than
absolutely.
The prior two.
It was crap.
I mean, it ends in them do they drop out of high school?
Yeah, because he gets her pregnant.
Yeah, and she's a track star with a pretty bright future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, in Fuuka, it's music.
Stupid.
There's music. I think one of them might be an idol singer, one of the love interests, and the other one is really into music. And I know I saw the first episode of this. God, there were a lot of panty shots.
Oh, yeah.
And, a lot of the lead character accidentally seeing panties and getting slapped silly for it. And yes, it certainly, it didn't seem like something I wanted to keep watching. I do know that they changed the adaptation significantly from the original manga.
Did they keep the bit in where someone dies partway through?
No, they got rid of it. And
what?
I think some people were really annoyed about that. Because that's
the whole thing anyone ever knows about that thing, is that it makes you rage and then one of them dies.
Yeah, someone gets hit by a bus.
Yeah. And
it comes out of nowhere. But I don't know if they even get hit by a bus in the anime version, or if they do and they just survive.
Oh, it's going to be
but I want to say, people I saw who watched the whole thing were like, well, by not, killing one of the characters with the bus, it makes the back half of the show kind of weird because then they have to work around that.
How do you even work around a character Okay.
Or a character not dying.
Anyway, look, I don't want to talk about Fuuka anymore.
Let's talk about Handshakers.
Oh, Christ.
Oh, my God.
So this is by Go Hands, a.k.a. the people who made K. And they have their look.
So, I just want to say, though, K did not make me physically nauseous to look at.
Yeah.
Handshakers, I gave up about 10 minutes in because, my God, I just remember the class president walks across the classroom and the way her breasts move was so baffling and sickening.
The character designs are weird because their heads look like ovals.
And they don't really have full necks.
Yeah, so it looks like any of these weird, not Beavis and Butthead, like the oval facing the other way, so closer to,
theirs were more rectangles.
Yes, this is more like an oval, like a flat oval. Not even Madoka-like, more like just like a circular, and their faces looked weird. And then it was CG animated, which made the whole thing look weirder. And then you add in all the Gohans,
I mean, it's worth pointing out, and I've seen this pointed out before, that the thing is, Gohan's, the stuff they put out looks exactly how they want it to.
Yes.
So this was totally intentional visually, even if it made most of us feel ill. Yeah. So one of the things that's noteworthy, I suppose, about Handshakers is that it had a sequel, and no one knew it was going to be a sequel, because the sequel was called Wiz, W''C, and everybody, like, tons of people went into Wiz like, oh, it's a different show. And I remember I saw one person who's like, I swear this shit's gonna be a sequel. It's like, just you wait, it's gonna be... And it was a sequel.
It was like within the first minute they say, and then the Handshakers. And I was like, I remember watching it going like, this is a motherfucking sequel to Handshaker. And I turned it off like straight away.
I mean, more power to the folks at Gohan's for getting exactly what they want.
Yeah.
But, this, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's worth looking at to be like, oh, okay. Some people have very different ideas about what is visually pleasing than most people do. But the one other thing I want to mention...
Piace,
Watashi no Italian, which involves a not particularly bright girl ending up working in an Italian restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine.
It seems it's one of those shoujos for like 10 to 12-year-old girls kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of. It's perfectly pleasant. There's food. There's an obnoxious genius chef who's like 10. And he's like, oh my god, how could you not possibly know what bruschetta is? And the girl's like, how would I know? It's fine. I thought it was perfectly decent. It's not something I would go out of my way to watch, but it was there. It was okay.
And one final thing that is worth bringing up is this was the season Naruto Shippuden ended.
Should I play taps?
What taps?
God, you're married to someone in the military. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I used to be able to play that on a harmonica with my nose. Anyway.
You have to do the... Naruto is bigger than any anime that aired this decade.
Yes.
That started this decade. Naruto is... like, what's bigger than Naruto in the world of anime?
Dragon Ball? Sailor Moon,
maybe? I don't even know.
Sailor Moon's been around for like 10 more years, so it's worth keeping that in mind.
I would say Naruto and Sailor Moon are probably tied. I think Dragon Ball is probably bigger, but Naruto and Sailor Moon is maybe tied. And like, I don't know, Astro Boy maybe?
I think you're underrating just how high the ratings were for Sailor Moon in the 90s when it aired.
There's the one, Naruto
was big.
And here's the thing, when Naruto Shippuden ended, like, a lot of people stopped watching Naruto because it's like, well, it's bloody long for a starter.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I mean, this is probably one of the ones you've heard people over the years bitch about fillers the most.
Oh, yes.
People, maybe a little less with Shippuden. I remember people screaming and wailing about it with Naruto.
Yes, absolutely. Because they had, like, the show ended and then just had, like, a year of filler, and then when they went to Shippuden, had the really cool opening. But the level to which Naruto has influenced pop culture, like there's that one, that thing recently with
God, they just brought out, what was it? Oh God, some American celebrity person who I don't know the name of just brought out like a collaboration with Coach where it's Naruto, like apparel from Coach.
Oh, then there was the Let's Storm Area 51. They can't hit us. If we Naruto run, we can go faster than their bullets. And like then you have all these TV. Oh my
god! I was at work and people were doing Naruto running, and I'm like, I am gonna pretend I have no idea what this is because I can't acknowledge this.
Like it's not just it's the Naruto run. It's the what do they call the thing where they do this?
You know
with
what?
Their hands?
It's worth pointing out that I guess the best way of putting it really though is that there's memes that came out of Naruto that people do, and they don't know why they don't actually know what the source of it is. And the Naruto running is totally that.
Yes.
People do Naruto running who have no earthly idea where it came from.
Yes. There's like not just that there's Naruto running, but then there's entire shipping fandoms. Like what was the one like Sasunaru?
Oh God, I'm having please don't give me hives. I'm having flashbacks to high school and friends who were into that.
And then there was the joke for years that was the people with the edgy young teenager usernames that was XX Naruto X Hinata XX
I mean, I looked over your shoulder when you're playing Overwatch, and there's fuckers named Sasuke.
Yes.
And of course they're using Hanzo.
Yes.
And it's like, oh my God. But anyway, Shippuden ended this season.
Yeah. And one thing, so I brought this up when we talked about Bleach ending earlier. Mm-hmm. When Bleach ended, people were like, oh, thank fuck.
Thank you for killing this. I once loved it, but it is a mere corpse of what it once was.
When Naruto ended, there was an outpouring of people from just everywhere.
Yeah.
People who had long since dropped off, but it was like,
oh, I remember Naruto.
I cared about this thing. This thing meant a lot to me. In a way that just did not happen for anything else.
Admittedly, I would point out, though, it couldn't have happened for a lot of previous shows because the way that anime was consumed was totally different. You couldn't have had this outpouring for, say, when...
Dragon Ball.
Yeah, or Zeta Gundam.
Yeah.
You know? I would say the closest I could... And this was so many magnitudes less. I do remember people being quite upset when Inuyasha's TV series ended.
I will say probably the most significant thing now, because Naruto is more a product of the last decade than this one. It continued airing from here, but by this stage it was so long in the tooth that, either you're on board or you're gone, kind of like One Piece is nowadays.
Oh God.
Yeah, but...
I can't even imagine trying to get into One Piece at this point.
The one thing that I think... why Naruto is so significant and important for this decade, without Naruto, Crunchyroll doesn't take off.
Yeah, probably not.
We've talked, Attack on Titan was huge for growing anime as a whole thing, and it got a huge number of people into...
As an overseas fandom.
Yes, and brought them all into Crunchyroll and grew this fandom and made it expand beyond to what it had been before. But, in terms of importance to Crunchyroll and taking off the Western streaming industry... Crunchyroll getting Naruto was the thing. It wouldn't have... nothing happens unless Crunchyroll pick up Naruto. And not only that, but it was also... When Crunchyroll picked up Naruto, a bunch of the fan subgroups who would cover things like Naruto, they said, these were people who had, been in the game for long enough that they actually just hated doing it. Mm. And they said, finally! These groups just suddenly at once almost went we don't have to do this anymore. Finally someone else is doing it and doing it at the same time, and they just stopped.
Naruto and Bleach were both, they were ones that brought about the era of speed subbing for fan subs. Because it was, those were the shows that speed subbing came to be because people were just that big on wanting to see it.
Yeah.
And that's where you saw fan subgroups competing to see who could turn something out the fastest. And oh my God. With Bleach, there were some really horrific subs that I watched to Bleach. Because I did watch the first 120 episodes of that show. But, yep. But, don't cry for me, Argentina.
That was Naruto.
Because Boruto is coming.
You mean Naruto?
Oh, you mean Boruto's dad, Shippuden?
I think one of my favorite things about a Naruto Shippuden was the Batchkoi ending. Batchkoi, baby.
Oh, wow!